I inherited the orchard in late October. I didn't even know it existed until the letter arrived. Creased, official, stamped with a county seal I'd never seen. A distant relative had died. No family, no will disputes, just me and the land. It was described simply, 20 acres of apple trees at the edge of a dying town. I almost sold it without going, but something about it pulled at me. Maybe desperation, maybe curiosity. Either way, I drove out there 2 days later. The road was barely a road. Dirt, mud, tire tracks that faded the farther I went. By the time I reached the gate, I hadn't seen another car in over an hour. The orchard stretched out behind it. Still, gray, silent. The trees were bare, their branches twisted into shapes that looked almost deliberate, like they'd grown with purpose, not chance. The ground beneath them was scattered with fallen apples, dark, shriveled, some split open and leaking into the soil. The smell hit me immediately. Sweet, rotten, heavy enough to sit in the back of my throat. I stepped out of the car, my boots sinking slightly into the damp earth. No wind, no birds, just a low buzzing somewhere near the ground. Flies. Neglected, I muttered under my breath, though the word didn't feel right. It wasn't just neglected. It felt abandoned. I found a small wooden shed near the center of the orchard, leaning to one side, door half open like it had been left that way in a hurry. Inside, tools, rusted, useless, and a ledger. It sat on a narrow table, coated in dust. I brushed it off and opened it. Names. Page after page of names, each one carefully written, dated. Next to each name, a number. Some were crossed out. Others weren't. I flipped to the last page. There was a blank line, and beneath it, my name, already written. A cold line of sweat slid down my neck. My fingers tightened around the edge of the book. "That's not funny," I whispered, though there was no one there to hear it. A sound broke the silence. Soft, close, thud. I turned. An apple lay on the floor behind me. Fresh, smooth, unbruised. It hadn't been there before. I was sure of it. Another thud. Outside. I stepped toward the door slowly, my pulse starting to hammer in my ears. Thud. Another apple hit the ground, then another. I stepped out into the orchard. The trees were still bare. No fruit on the branches. But apples were falling. Not from above. They were just appearing, mid-air, dropping straight down into the dirt with dull, heavy impacts. My hands started to shake. I stepped back and felt something give under my boot. I looked down. An apple had split open beneath me. The inside wasn't pale. It was dark, wet, too thick. The smell intensified, turning sour, almost chemical. I staggered away, wiping my hands on my jacket, even though I hadn't touched it. That's when I saw them. At the base of the trees, half buried in the soil. Shapes. At first I thought they were stones. Then one moved, just slightly. My breath caught. They weren't stones. They were hands. Gray, sunken, fingers curled into the dirt as if gripping something beneath the surface. Dozens of them, each one positioned under a tree. My chest tightened. The ledger, the names, the numbers. A realization crept in, slow and heavy. This place wasn't growing fruit. It was growing something else. The ground shifted. A wet, dragging sound followed. One of the hands twitched, then another. I stumbled backward, my heel slipping, nearly sending me to the ground. Above me, the branches creaked. Something fell. Not an apple. It hit the dirt with a dull, solid thump. I didn't want to look, but I did. It was a face, not fully formed, skin stretched too thin, features pressed inward like it had been forced through something tight. Its mouth hung open, and from it, a stem, an apple, attached, slick and fresh. My stomach lurched. I turned away, gagging, my vision blurring. The ground moved again. More hands pushing through now, reaching, grasping. The air turned cold. And then, a whisper. Faint, dry. Paid. I froze. The sound wasn't coming from one place. It was everywhere. Paid in full. My breath came in short, uneven bursts. I shook my head, backing towards the gate. "No," I whispered. Another voice joined it, then another, layered, close. "Balance remains." The ground dipped beneath my foot. Something brushed my ankle, cold, wet. I looked down. A hand had broken through the soil. Its fingers wrapped around my leg, tightening. I gasped, jerking back, but more hands surfaced, grabbing, pulling, dragging me down. The trees above me shuddered. Apples began to fall faster, dozens, hundreds, bursting against the ground, releasing that thick, rotten sweetness into the air. The whispers grew louder, hungrier. Balance remains. I clawed at the dirt, my fingers slipping, nails filling with mud. My breath tore out of me in sharp, desperate gasps. The gate was right there, just a few feet away. And then I saw it, standing just beyond the orchard. A figure, still, watching. Its head tilted slightly. Its face, my face, calm, unmoving, waiting. Behind me, the hands pulled harder. The earth gave way beneath my weight, and as my grip slipped, as the smell filled my lungs and the whispers pressed in from all sides, I understood. The orchard doesn't take. It keeps accounts. And somehow, I was already overdue. I took the job because it paid too well for what it was. All I had to do was hike into a marked section of forest, find an old fire watchtower, and confirm if it was still standing. No climbing, just photos and notes. Easy. The map labeled the area Sky Blind Woods. I assumed it was just a name. It wasn't. The moment I stepped under the trees, the light changed. Not darker, duller, like the sky had been drained of color. The canopy above was so thick I couldn't see a single break in it. No sun, no blue, just a flat, gray ceiling of tangled branches. The air felt colder, damp. Every breath carried the smell of wet bark and something stale, like a room that hadn't been opened in years. I checked my watch. Early afternoon, but it felt late, too late. I kept moving, following the GPS. The silence pressed in first. No birds, no insects, just my footsteps and the faint creak of wood somewhere high above. After a while, I stopped to drink some water, set my pack down, took a few sips. When I looked back, the trail was gone, completely gone. No footprints, no broken twigs, nothing to show I had ever walked in. A cold sweat spread across my neck. I stepped back, scanning the ground, turning in a slow circle. Nothing. That's not possible, I muttered.
My voice sounded wrong, flat, like it barely traveled. I turned forward again and froze. The trees felt closer. Not something I could measure, just wrong, like the space between them had tightened without me noticing. I grabbed my pack and started walking faster. Branches creaked above me, slow, dragging sounds, like something shifting its weight. I didn't look up, not yet. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Behind me. Step. 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 Perfectly in rhythm with mine. I stopped. The sound stopped. I turned. Nothing. Just rows of trees and that suffocating gray canopy. I swallowed hard and kept going. Step. 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 It matched me again. My breathing turned shallow, quick. I spun around suddenly. Silence. But the smell changed. Stronger now. Damp earth mixed with something sour, rotting. I took a step back and hit a tree. I turned to move around it and stopped. There was no space. The trees had closed in, trunks pressed tight together, forming a narrow circle around me. My chest tightened. My hands trembled so badly I had to clench them into fists. "That wasn't there," I whispered. Above me, something shifted. A low crack. I looked up. For a split second, I saw it. A long shape folded between the branches, too thin, too still. Then it moved, not climbing, unfolding, slowly. My breath caught in my throat. I stumbled back, but there was nowhere to go. The trees boxed me in completely now. The air felt thicker, harder to breathe. Then I noticed something else. There were no shadows. Not mine, not the trees. Just flat, lifeless light. A realization hit me, cold and heavy. This place wasn't blocking the sky. It didn't have one. A wet sound came from behind me. Close, too close. A slow inhale brushed the back of my neck. My body locked. I couldn't turn because I realized there had never been footsteps. Not mine, not its. Which meant whatever was behind me had been there the entire time. I don't remember how I got out, just the sudden break in the trees, the rush of real air, the sky bright and blue above me. I dropped to my knees at the edge, gasping, my hands digging into the dirt. When I finally looked back, the forest stood still, silent, normal, like nothing had happened. I looked down, at the ground beneath me. There were footprints leading out of the woods. 2 sets, perfectly aligned, step for step, mine and another, still following.
I took the night shift because no one else would. The job was simple. Sit in the archive room of a small, privately owned museum and monitor the preservation wing. Climate control, humidity checks, make sure nothing deteriorated. That was the word my supervisor used. Deteriorated. The building itself was old. Not historic, just old enough to feel forgotten. Narrow hallways, low ceilings, the kind of place where every step echoed a little too long. The preservation wing was in the basement. Of course it was. The air changed the moment I went down there. Colder, drier. It smelled faintly chemical, layered over something organic, something that didn't quite belong. Rot, maybe, or something trying not to rot. Rows of glass cases lined the room, each one sealed tight, labeled in careful handwriting. Inside, objects, personal things, watches, letters, clothing, and a few things I couldn't immediately identify. I didn't ask. Midnight came and went quietly. The soft hum of machines filled the silence, steady and constant. Then one of them stopped, just cut out. The sudden silence pressed against my ears. I looked up from my clipboard, heart giving a sharp, uncomfortable thud. A red light blinked on one of the control panels. Case 17. I walked over slowly, my shoes whispering against the concrete floor. Inside the case was a coat. Old, dark, the fabric stiff like it had been dried too many times. The label beneath it read, "Recovered, condition stable." I frowned. The glass was fogging. From the inside, a thin layer of condensation spread across it, crawling outward in slow, uneven patterns. "That's not right," I muttered. My voice sounded too loud in the stillness. I reached for the panel controls, my fingers slipping slightly against the smooth plastic. Temperature, normal. Humidity, normal. But the glass kept fogging. Then, a sound, soft, from inside the case. A faint scratching. My hand froze mid-air. It came again. Scratch. Pause. Scratch. My throat went dry. I leaned in slightly, my breath shallow, fogging the outside of the glass now. "Hello?" I whispered, without thinking. The scratching stopped. The silence that followed felt aware. Then, slowly, something shifted inside the coat. Not the fabric, under it. A subtle rise, like something pressing outward from within. I stumbled back, my shoulder hitting the shelf behind me with a dull thud. "No," I breathed. The coat moved again, more defined this time, an outline forming where there should have been nothing. Shoulders, a chest, something standing up inside it. The glass creaked softly as pressure built from within. The fog thickened, distorting the shape into something warped and wrong. Then a hand pressed against the inside of the case. Flat, human. I dropped the clipboard. It clattered against the floor, the sound sharp enough to make me flinch. The hand didn't move, just stayed there, waiting. And then another hand pressed beside it, and another. More shapes forming beneath the fabric, pushing outward, stretching it in ways cloth shouldn't stretch. The coat wasn't empty. It had never been empty. The label, condition stable. My breath hitched. It didn't say object. It didn't say artifact. It just said condition. The glass cracked. A thin line at first, then another. The sound of it splitting echoed through the basement, sharp and final. I turned to run, but something else caught my eye. The other cases. Condensation. All of them. Fog spreading across the glass. Scratching. Dozens of them. Soft. Out of sync. Building. I backed away slowly, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't steady them. The red lights on the panels began to blink, one by one, case numbers flashing in the dim light, all unstable, all waking. Behind me, the first case shattered. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space, glass hitting concrete, something wet following it. I didn't look back. I couldn't, because I understood then this wasn't preservation, it was containment, and whatever was inside those cases had just realized it wasn't alone anymore.